Obviously, first, congratulations on your new role as the head coach for American Samoa. How much is it? How much of a jump is it in your career?
Well, um, this is the third international country through my coaching career that I've been involved with. I was a technical advisor to the US Virgin Islands in 2014, and over the last 6 months, sort of been advising the technical director at Belize and stuff like that. But I've been talking to these guys for about a year, and obviously the movie's just come out, Next Goal Wins, which is about the team. It's based on the true documentary from 2011 of the same name. So the documentary was done first, obviously with Thomas Rongen. I mean, this is a team that through history has just been serial losers. I mean, they basically got beat 31-0 by Australia in 2002, the highest international defeat and score ever. And then obviously in 2011, Thomas was invited over, which is where the documentary came from, and took the team to the 2014 qualifiers and managed to beat Tonga 2-1, their first ever victory in an international game. Drew 1-1 with Cook Islands, and then actually lost 1-0 to Samoa in the last minute, which would have basically taken them through to the next round of qualifiers, which no American Samoa team in any age group has ever done before. And then they obviously made the movie that stars Michael Fassbender that's just come out. So I've been talking to them before, the movie or anything else. I had the documentary about a year ago, so I knew, the story behind it. And then I didn't hear from them for a little while. They went to the Pacific Games in Tahiti in December and got spanked in every game again. I think they got beat 11-0 by New Zealand. And this was the under-19s, actually, that I'm taking this next week. So they got beat 11-0 by New Zealand. I think 9-0 by some Solomon Islands, 6-0 by, or 4-0 by somebody else. And then about a month ago, the CEO 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗪, who's on the documentary, reached out and said, "Look, like we want Thomas to come back as a technical advisor, and we want you to come as the head coach." And so over the last couple of weeks, that's where it's come about. So Thomas is actually right now doing CBS co-commentary for all the Inter Miami games with Lionel Messi, and is also working for the Dutch consulate. So he doesn't have a full-time schedule available, which is obviously why. And so I've known of Thomas for obviously a number of years, since being back in the States with my involvement, obviously at MLS and everything else. And so he and I touched base, realized that we have the same philosophy and ideas on coaching and like how we want to do things. And so it's been a bit of a whirlwind. The last 3 weeks, I had to go to Vegas 2 weeks ago to meet Thomas officially and obviously 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗪, come up with a plan with everything. And then the idea was that we were just going to do the senior team for World Cup qualifying for this year. But then they asked me, would I be interested in taking the U19s to the U20 World Cup qualifiers? And I said yes. So that's where I'm heading on Wednesday. I leave here on Wednesday, head out via Hawaii, because that's the only place you can catch a flight to American Samoa from, and then get to American Samoa on Thursday. But the problem is it's Easter weekend in American Samoa. It's a very, very cultural and religious island and demographic. And so Friday is Good Friday. They do have some players that have Latter-day Saints as a religion, so they can't work Saturday. And then it's Easter Saturday. And on top of that, the island itself is actually celebrating their Flag Day, which is essentially their sort of independence or sort of amalgamation into the US as a territory. And so they have dragon boat races going on, everything else. On top of that, all the players for the U19s, or most of them, are all 17 or 18. So they're going through the last year in high school. And so they're studying for their exams. So on top of all those, I'm expected to take a team and go to the U19 or the U20 qualifiers with a team that essentially I'll have 4 or 5 days training. So I can perform miracles. I can make teams and players better. But it's going to be a challenge for sure. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. It's exciting. It's going to be an experience. But yeah, it's definitely something that I'm worth home writing about anyway.
Yeah, obviously, like you said, it's they've not got a very good track record, your team.
No.
What do you make of your own team ability wise, though? Yeah,
I think the U19's a little bit obviously what you try and do with the younger age groups, and again, until I get over there and see it myself, but I have a understanding with the research I've done, the infrastructure is not as well fabricated as most nations, right? I mean, you're talking about a Pacific Island nation that has one of the smallest demographics. There's only 55,000 people on the island as it is. Most of the people, and soccer isn't, or football isn't their first sport. American football and rugby is. So football comes in at a third or fourth. They have a youth infrastructure in place with boys and girls teams, which they have to do to maintain their FIFA eligibility. So the U19s, I mean, again, it's about changing the mentality and the culture, which is very difficult to do in a short space of time. I'm a little bit more optimistic on the senior side because the 2018 squad did really well. The 2018 senior squad actually won 2 games and then lost 3-2 to Samoa with a goal. I keep looking back. If they had goal line clearance or VAR, the goal would have been disallowed. It was like cleared off the line, and then they all shouted goal, and the linesman, I think, was intimidated, and they lost 3-2 with that and didn't go through. But a lot of those players were off-island players, that live in the US, in Hawaii, and places like that are from American Samoan descent from their parents or grandparents. And so I've managed already in the last 3 weeks to contact the majority of that squad who've all committed to come back. So we've got, for the senior team, I'm a little bit more optimistic. For the U19 team, it's really just about going and trying to develop and understand the culture and change some of the mentality from that losing mentality. Much like LR when I took over, and we can talk about that in a second. It's about changing the culture, changing the mentality, and just really trying to build a platform and a basis to move forward so that they can improve both as a nation and obviously as a team, overall. And that's really a long-term project. Short-term is I go there and we just take small wins. I mean, like if we get some positive from each passage of play, we get a corner, we get, shots on goal, we get some, lengths of possession and stuff like that. Like that's the message I'm going to be sending them. And just basically, look, we've got to get out of this mentality of losing every time we go somewhere. And that's going to be the most difficult challenge for me. Not, can I get the team set up? Can I get them structured? Can I get them, understanding what their responsibilities are? It's that mentality of, well, we'll go in and we're going to lose again. And is it going to be, pretty dramatic? Like, I mean, it's tough, but that's where we're at.
Obviously, like you said, talking about LR, going from them to managing a national team must be obviously an incredible achievement for you. What do you make of your own journey?
Well, mine was pretty, I mean, I had a pretty interesting journey. I was at Man United's academy till I was 16. Playing Blackmore was one of my best friends and stuff like that. And then I went out to Hong Kong. My dad was in the British Army and played out there. Came back, played a decent level of non-league. I played for Kettering Town, played for TNS, and was the youngest player manager in. And I still think it's still up there. I was 26 and took over as player manager of VS Rugby, or it's now known as Rugby Town. So I was the youngest player manager at the highest level of non-league, which I still think is up there. I think that would be in a record or close to. And then came over to the States in 2000 and played MLS for New York. Had the chance to come over, tore my ACL in my first game, and then joined the US Army. But before I left the States, I was managing, Castleton Gabriels. I mean, my daughter was born in Leeds, so I have an affinity with Atherton LR anyway. Played against him. Tommy Foster was my assistant, who's well known in those circles. And so my journey really has been one of just perseverance, like going, trying to be better as a coach, trying to bring those ideas on board. Joined the US Army, coached the Armed Forces men's and women's team at the Olympics and the World Cup. And then in 2018, came back to the UK for about a year, 18 months. My dad wasn't too well at the time, so we came back for a year. And we moved my wife and my son back here. And I reached out to a few of the non-league teams in the area and spoke to Andy Harrison, obviously at the time, who was the secretary. And LR were in a state. I mean, they were bottom of the league from the season before, finished bottom. I mean, the place was a mess. went the last game of the season that I took over, which I think was like either 17-18 or the 18-19 season. The last game was against Bacup. Obviously, I knew Dave Felgate and everybody pretty well, having played at Chester with him and stuff like that. And we got beat 5-0, and there was 12 people in the crowd, and 8 of those were from Bacup. And like, it was like, you know, I mean, that's the level that LR were at only, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. I went into the changing room after the game because I was watching from the stands, and I turned around and said, all of you pack your stuff up, and every single one of you get out the club. You will never play for this club ever again. And started building the club from scratch. I brought people in like Adam Lawrence. I brought in 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗓. I brought in, you know, some really, really good young players. And pre-season, you know, we did pretty well. I think we beat Salford under 23s 4-0. I think we drew 2-2 with Morecambe reserves. And we started off, you know, the season pretty well. And, you know, we hit the bar 4 times against Nelson and only drew 1-1, and we should have beaten them like 5-1. We then played Lower Brecker. We're beating everybody. Lost 6-1 to them, which is the highest defeat I've ever been in a game. You know, we drew 2-2 with Darwin with a goal at the last game, and then we went on a really good run. We won, I think, 5 or 6 games in a row, something like that. We beat Blackpool 1-0, Steaton 3-1, St Helens 3-2, and the guys really started, you know, coming together. And then, unfortunately, I had to come back to the States in the October. So my stay at LR as a manager was literally, you know, 3 or 4 months. I think 16 games in total. I think like I won 9 or 10 of them, something like that. But I was thankful to Sean, the committee, and everybody else, because they gave me the opportunity. You know, really, no one else really wanted the job, but I felt, you know, compelled because I have an affinity, like I said, with the club, and I wanted to see them succeed. So it's testament certainly to Sean and the committee over the last 4 or 5 years. Certainly to Dave right now, like I'm following here from the States from afar, obviously, and thanks to you, because obviously from a communication point of view, like if we didn't have the means of communicating, which you do so well, like in all the games, it'd just be, okay, I'm pestering the crap out of Sean every Saturday going, hey, what's the result? And like, you know, who scored or whatever. So I'm really thankful to you guys. But yeah, Sean and the committee deserve all the praise and the credit. They've done everything that they set out to do at this moment. The club is probably in a much better place than it's ever been, probably in the last sort of 10 or 15 years for sure. I think Dave and his staff have put together probably one of the most competitive squads that LR have had in years. And I mean that, you know, probably the last 15 or 20 years for sure. And I just wish them all the very best. It's just unfortunate that they've come up against FC St Helens, who, like, you know, have already won the league or whatever. But you know, any other year they would be, you know, pushing there. So hopefully things, you know, the last 6 games of the season, they continue doing what they're doing. They get to the playoffs and, you know, really get through and get promoted. Because I think the team, the club, the town, I think everybody involved with the club deserves any success that they get, because they've done so much hard work over the last 4 or 5 years. And people don't see that, obviously, from a non-league perspective, all the hard work people like yourself do in your own time, volunteer-wise. I mean, this is what keeps non-league clubs going, is the volunteer when people have got other jobs to do. So I'll actually be taking, because my own company has obviously sponsored the training gear, I'm actually going to be taking one of the training tops with me to American Samoa, and I'm going to present it to the Football Federation over there. And so at least Atherton LR can have a shirt up in the deep Pacific and everything else up in there. So at least we can say that LR gets to all places around the world anyway, for sure.
Obviously, like you were saying, a lot of challenges at LR when you first got there.
Yeah.
In your entire career, what was the biggest challenge you think you faced to get where you are right now?
Well, I was in the US Army and deployed to Iraq. So being shot at and like seeing people like die around you, that's probably the biggest challenge from a football challenge. I think other than LR, because I've been pretty successful, you know, playing and coaching, you know, and we can measure success in any way we want, right? I mean, I got the chance to get paid to play football, so not many people can say that they've done that. You know, I've been at a Olympics and World Cup coaching successfully, albeit a military, but it's exactly the same. So not many people can say that they've coached, you know, at Olympics or World Cup. And now I've got the chance to coach an international team, and albeit ranked 186 in the world, but Not many people can say that they've had the opportunity to coach an international team at a World Cup qualifiers or Olympic qualifiers. So that's just, another feather for me to be able to hopefully progress on at a much higher level on the coaching side. I'm hoping this is going to lead, if this isn't, something that's more long-term, but certainly I hope so, that will lead to other opportunities coming up. So when I get back to your question in the chat, this by far will be the biggest challenge because the stakes are so much higher, right? To face teams that have much better and more expansive resources. I mean, some of these teams, even though they get an annual stipend from FIFA, they have much more. You've got Cook Islands that's actually part of New Zealand. American Samoa, while it's part of the US, doesn't have the support of US soccer. That's the problem. And so with it being a territory, you've got Tahiti that's part of France that can call on players from the French, national system. You've got Cook Islands that can call all their players play in New Zealand or Australia, Solomon Islands and stuff like that. So this is by far the biggest challenge, to be able to change a losing mentality, turn it around and try and educate players where football isn't their first national sport, with a cultural mentality of what's known as the 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗪, the white man, because obviously they're very cultural and they're very sensitive to people coming and trying to tell them what to do, or that they feel that they're being told what to do. So it's going to be a cultural change for me to have to be uber and ultra sensitive to everything that's going on and how it's said and how it's presented, as well as try and get the message across in a short space of time of what it is that they need to do to change on the field. So yeah, by far, as if LR wasn't a challenge, but hopefully the small time I was there helped lay some foundation on the field anyway, or at least bring some discipline back on the field and I'm not taking all the credit obviously, but at least I saw the vision that Sean and everybody wanted. I bought into it and did my very best to bring at least some competitive players on the field. So at least we started winning games. And our average crowd, I think when I left for the start of 2019 or 2018-19 season, I think we were up to 140, 150 people a game. So, the support is there and it's proven, right? I mean, they're now successful this season and crowds have gone up by, I think it was 35% or whatever it was. So, from a challenge, you take each situation, you look at what needs to be done and you do your very best to try and initiate the foundation. You have a belief system as a coach as to what you want to do and what you want to achieve. And all you try and do is hope that you've got the support of everybody around you to be able to do that. We know traditionally now anyway, like managers don't get that long. They're either successful, certainly at that level, right? At level like, 8, 9 or whatever. If you're successful, other clubs are going to come in and want you to leave that club and go elsewhere. I mean, you had it before when, Jamie and all those guys were on board like last season. And then obviously with Dave too. I mean, he's been really successful this season and there's no doubt people are looking at the job that he's doing and saying, maybe they want to take him somewhere. I hope that, LR are able to match his own ambition and be able to move up at the same time as he wants to stay, right? I mean, that's where we're at. But yeah, challenge-wise, you take it. I mean, I've got a 30-hour flight on Wednesday. I leave Wednesday morning. I get there Thursday night. Coming back, the tournament's in Vanuatu, so going there, we've got to stop over in Auckland, New Zealand for a day to get there. On the way back, I've got to stop off via Fiji and then like all that. So look, it's great. This ain't a vacation for sure, but like whatever. It's just a long way to go to to take on the challenge, and that's why this is probably the most the highest challenge, the toughest challenge that I've faced playing or coaching at any time.
And obviously a final question, thank you so much by the way for everything that you've done, and for your new challenges, what's your plans and aspirations for your new role?
So like I said, I think just recapping like where we're talking about, I think my biggest message when the very first thing I want to do when I get there is bring all the players into the room, keep everybody else out there, and have a PowerPoint. And the first word I want to use is trust, right? Like I want them to understand that they can trust me, that I will have their back and I will do everything I can Like if you show me that you're committed, I'll show you how to win, right? I think that's the message that I want to portray to them. I'm not naive enough to go in there and go, yeah, we're going to go against Vanuatu, Cook Islands, and Tonga, and we're going to win every game. We're not. All I want us to do is to be competitive. All I want us to do is to come away, be as prepared as we possibly can, and see if the players themselves can A, understand what it is I'm asking them to do, and B, have the ability to be able to execute, right? I mean, at this particular point, if they're not fit, I can't get them fit within 5 days before going to a qualifying tournament. So I have to try and understand then what I have and use my squad and go, okay, I've got 5 subs. So, like, give me everything you got. You're breathing out your backside after like 30 minutes. I'm going to have to make a sub and hopefully split it. I've got to split it into sections, into 10 or 15-minute sections, and get through each one of those sections of the game, hopefully unscathed with a plan. Like, I don't want to just put 11 players behind the ball. That's counterproductive, right? All it does is just increase pressure. And regardless of what you think, you put 11 players behind the ball, at some point that pressure's going to count and you're going to end up getting scored again. So what I'm trying to do is give them an idea on a couple of set pieces, a couple of things about possession, and just encourage them to just try it and not worry about the consequences of trying different things. Like, yeah, okay, like a mistake could lead to a goal. Got it. But let's get into the habit of trying these things. Let's get into the habit of being a little bit more confident on the ball, a little bit more confident in your teammates, a little bit more confident in what you're being asked to do. And hopefully, certainly at that level anyway, that there's not a lot of difference, right, in the age groups. The senior team, there is when you get into New Zealand. Obviously, got Chris Wood, who's a starting forward who's in the Premier League. So, American Samoa, where a guy that I've got as a forward who's, got 2 kids and he's got a day job, in San Francisco, like as a computer programmer, like, if we ever get to that stage, that's the difference in class. So I don't want to be, obviously I'm ambitious. I want to be successful, but I'm a realist too, right? And I understand like that, the challenges we face are far more than any other, but it's a challenge just the same. You just got to work out the best point of attack to go at it. That's where I'm going to go.
Thank you very much for that. Obviously, good luck to you for your future career. Best of luck for the American Samoa team and best of luck for the Olympic under-19s.
Yeah, and Caden, thank you. And I just want to send a message out, obviously, to everybody at the club. I keep in regular contact with Sean, probably once a week or whatever. I follow everything you're doing. You guys are doing a fantastic job. My best wishes go out to Dave and the rest of the squad, obviously for the rest of the season. So fingers crossed that they can maintain and keep up the momentum that they've got now towards the end of the season. Last minute winner yesterday as well from Luke. And these guys are pulling results out, which is a sign of a good team. So it sounds as if the team are really got some good camaraderie and coming together at the right time, which is great. And all I can do is watch from afar and as far as American Samoa and hope that, they continue what they're doing. So best wishes to everybody. I hope everything's going to work out. And if I ever find time to obviously get back to the UK at any point, I'll be popping into the club and saying hello to everybody again at that point. So thank them, thank you, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, David.
All right, thanks.